Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. I'm Angela, and we are going to do a webinar on the case against sugar. I just wanted to chime in with the camera, say hi, and let you know that there's a real person, but I am going to turn my camera off. That way I'm not staring at myself like I am now, instead of staring at the camera. And we'll go through the presentation, then I'll chime back in on the end. Okay? Thank you. All right. And so, like I said, my name is Angie. I am a certified nurse practitioner and health coach. And I always get the question, what is a nurse practitioner? And so basically, we're advanced practice nurses. When people hear nurse, they automatically think that you're the one who does the vitals. You may listen to their heart and lungs before you go and get the doctor. Well, we're not doctors, but we are advanced, and so we're allowed to diagnose and treat. And then, depending on what state you're in, some of us are allowed to be independent, and I happen to be in Arizona, which is an independent state. And so, for my NP degree, I went to Grand Canyon University. And I actually started to go and get my doctorate, but it was not where my passion was. My passion was for something different, so I stopped going for my doctorate. And then I started at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. And so it's the largest nutrition program in the nation. And I became a health coach. So I have about 2 more weeks left, and I will be a certified health coach. Sorry, certified integrative nutrition health coach. And so I've been busy over the last year. And then for the last 2 years since the clinic opened, I've trained in homeopathy, CBD, vitamin infusions, weight loss, men's health, women's health, peptide therapy. And that's why I always say that we are more than just primary care. If you want more information on becoming a patient of ours, you can visit daisyfamilyhealth.com. We are accepting members still. And then if you are looking for some health coaching, you can visit bophelo.co, bophelo.co. All right, so let's get started. So we're talking about sugar for this webinar. And so sugar comes in many forms from beyond that white powder that you see here on the screen. Some claim to be better than others. Some have different names you wouldn't even recognize. It's so confusing. And so here are some common things you may hear. Oh, it's okay in moderation. Your body's not designed to digest sugars. Sugar-free products are always healthy. Artificial sweeteners are worse. You need sugar for energy. Sugar is addictive. You ever heard any of those common sayings before? One thing for certain, we consume way more sugar than we ever have before. So back in the 1800s, the average person consumed about 4 to 6 pounds of sugar. Back in the 1900s, they consumed about 90 pounds. Now we are up to 150 to 170 pounds of sugar in a year. Isn't that crazy? Unbelievable. That's a lot of sugar. And so this translates to about a quarter to a half a pound or 30 to 60 spoons of sugar per day. 30 to 60. Let that marinate in your head. So it's hard to believe that one person is capable of that, right? So keep in mind, you're just not consuming the obvious sugar like in your coffee and any cookies that you eat. It's hidden in the majority of the foods that you're probably already eating. And a lot of people don't even think about that. So sugar likes to play hide and seek in our foods. So some foods that you may see sugar in, that's why you have to turn the bottle around and read the label. Ketchup, barbecue sauces, tomato sauces, marinades, salad dressing, yogurt, breads, protein bars, peanut butter. I don't know why it's in peanut butter, but it's probably because it's sugar, so it tastes better than plain old peanuts, right? Soups, canned fruits, cereals, crackers, oatmeal, and frozen dinners. Those are just a few obvious places where sugar likes to hide out. Or sorry, not obvious, right? And so I went to go find something that is obvious that we all know has a lot of sugar. And I am not harping on Pepsi Corporation at all. We are all adults. We all can read the labels. And I'm not here to fight against the companies. I'm here to educate you and teach you. All right. So Mountain Dew is a big culprit of having a lot of sugar. So let's look at this label here. Let me get my little highlighter out. And so total carbohydrates, 77 grams. That is 28%. So this one soda, it's only 20 ounces. That's 28% of the carbohydrates that you need for the day. So that's just carbs. All right. And then sugars, 154%. So you've already drank more sugar than you needed for the whole day just by drinking this one Mountain Dew. All right. And then you lost a quarter of your carb needs to this Mountain Dew. So we look at the ingredients, okay, carbonated water, high fructose corn syrup, concentrated orange juice. Could our sugar intake be coming from the orange juice? Yeah, it can. But what I really want you to look at is that high fructose corn syrup. That's where the sugar is hiding at, okay? High fructose corn syrup. So that may be a reason why you may not recognize the sugar that you have in your diet because it'll rarely say sugar. So I hope you have a pen handy. I want you to write these things down that you can look for on the labels, okay? And so a lot of them were in with OSC. So you have dextrose, dextrose, maltose, maltose, glucose, glucose, fructose, fructose, corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, corn sweetener, which I haven't seen that. They must really hide that in there. I haven't seen corn sweetener in anything. Sucrose, you may see that a lot. Sucrose, sorbitol, sorbitol, sorghum syrup, sorghumsyrup, sorghum syrup, agave nectar, agave, and then nectar is nectar. Carbitol, I haven't heard of that one either. carbitol. Make sure you write that down. Evaporated cane juice. Galactose, galactose. And there's many more. So I hope you have those written down, and that way it can kind of help you because sugar is hidden in so many things. Did any of these surprise you? Any of these names? Yeah, you wouldn't think that sugar. At the end, I'm gonna bring up a couple food items that I have in my fridge, and one of them I wouldn't think sugar would be in it. Ketchup, ketchup is obvious, but I couldn't believe that was in this one ingredient. I'm sorry, one food item. And so I grabbed this from one of my favorite spots I used to eat at. It's a very known cafe. And they vow to have cleaner foods, and they have. They've cleaned up their chicken where it doesn't have antibiotics. It is raised appropriately. non-GMO. But we never know unless we're cooking our own food. But this is a trustworthy company, and this is an Asian salad. So you think, okay, Asian salad. But what baffled me is that there's sugar in the salad. The dressing, yeah, I've seen sugar in a lot of dressings, but I couldn't understand why there's sugar in the salad. So this first part here up top, oops, sorry, I'm jacking it all up. That is the salad itself. So it's got chicken, water, seasoning, sea salt, garlic, onion, and right here, sugar. I don't even know why it would have sugar in it. And I'm looking at the ingredients. What could the sugar be? Maybe in the wonton strips. I never paid attention when I've eaten a salad if the wonton strips tasted sweet or not. But sugar is right there. It shouldn't be in the chicken, sesame seeds, cilantro. It shouldn't be in any of these ingredients. And then down here at the bottom is the dressing. And so the first ingredient is water, distilled vinegar, soybean oil, and then here comes the sugar. So they say when sugar is high on the list, there's more of that ingredient in the item. Usually, it used to be back in the days, the first three items on the ingredient list were the main culprits, but it may even get as high as 5 to 8 ingredients. As you get down here, like toasted almonds, cilantro, those will have the least amount in that ingredient label. But if it's in the top 5 or so, you have to be aware. And so if sugar is already in the food that we eat, then why should we care? It's not like everyone's getting sick, right? The problem is the excess sugar. It's that most health issues do not manifest immediately, so we don't necessarily see it or feel it. It's usually later on. And mental illness, behavioral problems are often attributed to other sources beyond diet. Allergies, arthritis, migraines, are explained by our environment, stress levels, and response to medications. Immune disorders, degenerative diseases, diabetes, and cancer take time to diagnose, and most people aren't grabbing their food journals at this point to search for the connection. So, because things happen as it's been getting tormented throughout the body, and it may take years, the connection is not there. But there's been more research that shows how sugar is affecting our bodies. And I think we're building a great case against sugar, right? Do you agree? So let's talk about sugar 101. So that's the best way for you to understand how dangerous it is for our body. So before sugar leaves the digestive tract, it's composed of two simple sugars, glucose and fructose. Nice and simple. Glucose is an important source for us. Our body, that's the one that our body needs. And it's for energy, it's easy to obtain. If we're not consuming our body, in our diets, our bodies can make it. So this amazing body can make the glucose for us. The problem is the fructose. Our bodies do not produce much of it, and quite frankly, there's no need for it to do so. There's no proven physiological need for fructose at all. And so the relationship between sugar and insulin resistance has become a crucial topic for us as healthcare providers. And like I said, I want to educate you. So as a consumer or what we call a labor. So insulin is one of the most important hormones in our bodies. It's responsible for directing glucose in the cells to be used for energy. However, when our cells no longer respond to insulin, our bodies receive the message that it needs to produce more. And so this vicious cycle starts. And so the pancreas is going to make more insulin, But over time, the pancreas is going to get tired for this high demand of insulin because of the elevated blood sugars. And so it's no longer able to maintain. And that's when a person becomes insulin resistant. And insulin resistance has become more prevalent even among young people in their 20s or so. And it's funny, when I was a nurse, we never talked about, even as nurse practitioners during training, we never talked about how important the diet is. It was just, oh yeah, cut out this, cut out that, but never dive deep. And so that's why I'm so grateful for going to um, Institute of Integrated Nutrition, because we really dive deep into the food that's being eaten. And so insulin resistance is thought to be a big contributor to many diseases, included but not limited to type 2 diabetes, obesity, metabolic syndrome, and cardiovascular disease. So even after these diseases develop, elevated blood sugar remains an ongoing problem. This excess is often the reason people with these illnesses experience complications such as blindness associated with diabetes. So it's no secret that we have a epidemic on our hands, right? We have an obesity epidemic. 1 in 3 children and 2 out of 3 adults are overweight or obese in the United States. And so I want us to take a stand. I'm taking a stand. I want you to take a stand. Sugar's role in gaining weight is much more serious than just adding some empty calories. Instead, it affects the hormones responsible for satiety and the feelings of satisfying your hunger. Therefore, it leads you to eat more and more. I'm sure you can see the problem here. Knowing this alone strengthens the case that there is a 60% increase in the risk of obesity in children for every daily serving of sugar-sweetened beverages in their diet. It is important to note that weight gain from sugar is often presented in the abdominal area. So this is visceral fat. If a person has a large percentage of visceral fat, it can lead to a higher risk profile for other diseases, and some of them are life-threatening. So therefore, sugar is the leading factor in the rise of obesity, among other serious health problems. All right, a lot of people never thought sugar is related to liver health. Sorry, I was taking a sip of water. So fructose is one of the main components of sugar. Remember we said you have glucose and fructose. And that is metabolized by the liver, but only in significant amounts at a time. And so if it's small amounts, it wouldn't be a problem because our liver is pretty amazing. But we consume too much. And so what happens is fructose will be turned into glycogen and stored by the liver for safekeeping until our bodies was ready to use it. But because we're getting too much fructose and there's already an ample amount of glycogen in the liver, it overloads your liver and is forced to turn this into fat. So have you ever heard of fatty liver? And so this process is called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. All right. That is the new liver disease for people who don't drink alcohol. When we get labs of the liver enzymes back, we're like, do you drink? And they're like, no. And we're like, okay, what do you eat? And so that's the new liver disease. And the problem is with liver disease, it can turn into cirrhosis. And when a person goes into cirrhosis, there's no turning back. The liver is amazing. It can repair itself. But with this continuous consumption of these bad foods, it can't catch a break and it can no longer repair. And so that's when a person goes into cirrhosis. And so now we'll talk about the heart. So it's been many misconceptions about cardiovascular disease, even on our end, as healthcare providers, the role of cholesterol and what foods harm our or help the heart. It's always been thought that it's saturated fat and smoking. But there's another culprit, and it's sugar. Yep, you heard it. Sugar consumption is a leading contributor to the number one killer of this world, heart disease. So studies have shown that consuming a lot of sugar, as far as a large amount of the fructose, can cause a high rise in the LDL, which is your bad cholesterol. It can cause a rise in your blood glucose, your insulin level, and abdominal obesity. And so in this study, they found that out in as little as 10 weeks. It's like, wow. In the chat box, I shared some articles that you're welcome to review later on if you want, but it'll show you how sugar is linked to heart disease. And so sugar versus immunity. So your immune system, and I meant to state this earlier, insulin is related to immunity as well. Maintaining a normal insulin level will help your immunity. And so we know the immune system is responsible for defending our body against illnesses. And that's a very big deal. A lot of people don't realize. And we're gonna have a webinar on immunity, I believe next month in November. And so we're gonna really dive deep into immunity. Because if your immune system is compromised, you're putting yourself in danger of so many pathogens that could make you sick. We just experienced it with coronavirus, people who were compromised, they didn't handle the coronavirus well. Some were on breathing machines and some people died. So we have to really look out for our immune system. So according to a study through Loma Linda University, 100 grams of sugar can make your white blood cells 40% less effective in killing germs. So our white blood cells are our infection fighting cells, and it can 40% less effective. So on top of already a body that might be stressed and irritated, sugar directly affects your main line of defense. All right. The most alarming part about this is that sugar crippling effect stays present in our body 5 hours after we consume it. So 5 hours after you consume this Mountain Dew, it's still screwing up your body. Cancer. It's hard to believe that something so prevalent in our body and our diets can cause cancer. And I hate to be the one to break that news to you, but cancer loves sugar. It really does. So what cancer is basically an uncontrolled growth and multiplication of cells. And so, and this is also one of the leading causes of deaths worldwide. And so you have this normal cell that, and basic science, our cells replicate every 90 to 120 days. But when this cell becomes abnormal and grows uncontrollably, that's a cancer cell. And so how is sugar related to it? It's the insulin. Insulin is one of the main hormones responsible for regulating the growth of the cells. And it has been concluded that having constantly elevated insulin levels can indeed contribute to cancer. And what brings down or brings up the insulin levels? The sugar. Remember, a few minutes ago, we said insulin is responsible for keeping our sugar levels at bay. All right, so consuming sugar raises the insulin levels, and now there's a considerable amount of evidence that contributes to this cancer risk and that progression of the insulin levels. The brain. So sugar also affects our brain. Once we get something in our head, sometimes we run with it. So I know sugar, glucose is needed for the brain, And I know that our body makes glucose, but I used to always say, oh, I need this. My brain needs it. The brain needs sugar. And if you ever thought that way, you just need to let it go, because the brain doesn't need all the sugar that we are consuming. So studies have shown that sugar slows down the brain function, hinders new learning, and decreases memory recall. There's also strong connection between high sugar intake and the prevalence of depression and anxiety. So we've already had a significant increase in depression and anxiety just because of COVID, and which it probably leads to people turning to sugar more. And we'll talk about it actually in our next slide about how sugar is just as addictive as cocaine. And so it gives us that good feeling that our body likes. And so, have you ever experienced a sugar crash? And so you drink this Mountain Dew, you're all pumped up, yeah, ready to go. And then probably about 30, 60 minutes later, you crash. And so you're having these feelings of irritability, decreased mood, brain fog, fatigue. Imagine all that going away. Imagine being tired naturally because you've been working from 5 p.m. and now it's 9 p.m. at night, and now you're just naturally tired. But imagine not having this up and down rush. That's what sugar is doing to your body. So foods rich in sugar disrupt our brain's transmitters that works to stabilize our moods. And so if we're continuing disrupting the function of these receptors, we no longer have that control over our moods as we normally would. According to a functional medicine doc, this is a huge contribution of chronic depression, and I totally agree. So, are you addicted? And sometimes we use the word very loosely, saying you are addicted to your favorite food. I'm going to read you the definition of addiction according to the American Society of Addiction Medicine. Addiction is a primary chronic disease of brain reward, motivation, memory. Dysfunction in these circuits leads to characteristic biological, psychological, social, and spiritual manifestations. This is reflected in the individual pathology pursuing reward and or relief by substances use and other behaviors. So addiction is characterized by the inability to consistently abstain, impairment in behavioral control, craving, diminished recognition of significant problems with one's behaviors and interpersonal relationships, and a dysfunctional emotional response. So like other chronic diseases, the addiction often involves cycles of relapse, remission. Without treatment or engagement in recovery activities, addiction is progressive and can result in a disability or premature death. So when you think about it, maybe you don't have an addiction, or maybe you do. But I want you to think about that when you're thinking about sugar or craving sugar. Are you craving it because you're addicted to it, or are you eating it because you see it? So just really let that kind of sit with you and marinate, and hopefully you're not addicted to sugar. And I know it was a pretty long definition, but I wanted to really lay that out to you to get you thinking. And so dopamine, I don't know if you ever heard of dopamine, but it's responsible for controlling our reward and our pleasure response in the brain. So when you eat a lot of sugar, you get this a massive amount of dopamine released in your brain. But as you continue to consume sugar, the dopamine is not as powerful. The receptors aren't. And so making it less effective. And guess what? Now you need more sugar to create that same euphoric dopamine reaction. And so this is a vicious cycle much like what happens to drug addicts. And there was a popular study that proved that the addictive qualities of sugar is real. The study was with rats and Oreos. And so these were previously drug addicted rats too. And they were more, when they looked at their brains, it was more active when exposed to the Oreos compared to the cocaine. And then another study showed that the brains of people with food addiction reacted to sugar the same way as drug addicts react to drugs. Wow. But not all sugar is created equal. So I want to kind of talk about that. And some of them are worse than others, and some of them are better than others, vice versa. And so I'm gonna go through some sugars that should definitely be avoided as much as possible, as well as some alternatives. Do you have any sugar alternatives? I know if I drink tea, I'll put some raw honey in mine. I'm not a big stevia person. I'm trying to get used to it, but raw honey and stevia is a good alternative. And so I added this slide in because I know that I'm overwhelmed as a healthcare provider. So I know you have to be overwhelmed right now just by listening to this conversation, as many of you probably do not realize the harm that sugar is doing to our body. And so I wanted to give you a woosah moment just to kind of soak it all in. Okay. And if you need any help, I'm here for you. And so some products that you should avoid: aspartame. Aspartame is a chemical sweetener best known for its appearance in diet sodas. It's very popular in diet sodas. Some people cannot tolerate it, um, and some can tolerate it in small forms. Some people might get migraines or digestion problems. But regardless of that initial reaction, it has been proven to be pretty dangerous. It's actually banned in some countries. I won't even go there about why the US allows some ingredients and other countries don't. But anyway, the University of Liverpool conducted a study and found that aspartame was mixed with the common food coloring. The result was clear toxicity to the brain cells. Researchers have also found that aspartame breaks down to formaldehyde. You know what formaldehyde is, right? That's what they use to embalm people. And it's a well-known carcinogen. So when you ever hear something is a carcinogen, that means it can cause cancer. Crazy, right? Then we have sucralose. Sucralose is commonly known as the brand name Splenda, and it's processed using chlorine. You heard that right, chlorine. You know what chlorine is? Bleach, right? Researchers also find that the waste of consuming this quote unquote sugar can be broken down in wastewater treatment centers. So think of what it's doing to the inside of your body. And then we have high fructose corn syrup. Now this one might be a bit challenging to avoid because it's freaking in everything. High fructose corn syrup is in everything. And so this sweetener plays a huge role in building fat up in the liver and major weight gain. A study found that high fructose corn syrup is sometimes laced with mercury. And I don't know if you know about mercury, but it's a heavy metal, which is linked to heart disease and developmental disorders like autism. All right, don't worry. I'm going to share some alternatives with you. So what you want to try instead, and these are some safe sugar alternatives. Like I said, stevia is one that I'm trying to get used to. I think it's too sweet. And so I just basically cut out all added sugars, period. And like I said, I'll use some honey if in my tea. I try not to use it every day. Anyway, stevia is an extract made from the stevia plant. And so it's natural. It's shown to help balance blood sugar levels, cholesterol, insulin resistance, and blood pressure. But you have to pay attention to the label. Sometimes it includes additives, so make sure you read the label. Coconut sugar. Coconut sugar is a natural sweetener if it's unrefined. It'll still contain all the vitamins and minerals, and it does not contribute to those fluctuations in your blood sugars like other refined sugars can. Raw honey. Honey has less fructose and provides other health benefits, including promoting heart health and fighting inflammation. I always tell people to get local raw honey, especially to help with that inflammatory component if you have allergies, asthma, because the local bees are gonna be sourcing that honey from local allergens, right? Which are, plants. And so if you get local honey, it's gonna fight inflammation for you much better. And then of course, too much of a good thing can be bad. So keep this in mind when you're trying those alternatives. All right, you ready to take action? And so if you look at this picture here, when you're getting your foods or eating your foods, I want you to think about an alternative. And as you use alternatives, the cravings will start to diminish. But which would you rather have, this apple or this muffin or cupcake? And I know some of you may say the cupcake, but you need to change your mindset because the apple's going to taste nice and sweet, but it has other benefits for you. The cupcake probably doesn't have any health benefits. I don't care if the label may say it has a little protein in it and a little fiber. Think about the harm that the sugar is going to cause. All right. And so, any thoughts or any questions that you may have, you can feel free to chime in at the chat box down there if you have any questions. I just shared a ton of information with you, a whole crap load of information. I hope you're able to write down those hidden sugars that you need to look out for. And it's okay if you're overwhelmed. Like I said, I'm overwhelmed and I've been taking care of people for years. But I had to take a look at my life and myself and kind of figure out what was going on and why I was having my symptoms. And so I'm gonna chime back in here with my camera. Hello. And so because I wanted to share, let's see. So Panera now has dressing that you can have at home. And I wanted to share this with you because I couldn't believe it. So it's Mediterranean lemon salad dressing. And it's a vinaigrette. So if you're going to choose your dressings, try to go for a vinaigrette instead of a creamy dressing. It's a healthier option. That'll be another topic that we'll talk about. But I was reading the ingredient because I just picked it up. I'm like, okay, it's Panera. Like I said, it's one of the top cafes out there. Considered a healthy cafe. And so it has canola oil, okay, white wine vinegar, okay, water, extra virgin olive oil, so that's good. Sugar. I don't know why sugar would be in the lemon vinaigrette, but it's in here. So you just got to read the labels. And when you look at the nutrition facts, it has 3 grams of sugar. Mayonnaise. I can't say the nice thing about mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is not good for you at all, period. And like I used to eat mayonnaise, but that's a whole nother topic. But even this mayonnaise has sugar in it. And so soybean oil, water, whole eggs, egg yolks, distilled vinegar, salt, sugar. And what I was gonna say is the nice thing about this is it doesn't have, I don't know if you can see, it doesn't have enough sugar for it to count as anything. So the total carb is 0. And so, but it still has sugar in it. And the thing is sugar sneaked into these foods so we can get enough, just enough to get that addiction started. Next is the obvious ketchup. But what caught me with this ketchup bottle is it says no high fructose corn syrup. So I'm like, sweet, this is a healthier option, doesn't have sugar in it. And it has also a cholesterol and fat-free food. I don't know why it says that. Anybody with a little common sense know that it wouldn't have cholesterol and fat in it anyway. But it caught my eye with the no high fructose corn syrup. And so I bought it. And then when I was looking in the fridge for things to talk about today, I turned it over. First ingredient, tomato concentrate. Okay, it's ketchup. Guess what the second ingredient is? Sugar. Second ingredient, which means you know it's a lot of sugar in here. Why do we need sugar in our ketchup? According to this, so one serving is 1 tablespoon, and that has, sorry, I need to put my glasses on, 4 sugars. So 4 sugars in 1 tablespoon, and most time people don't eat 1 tablespoon. I guess it's better than drinking soda, but it is hidden, and it actually is not hidden. It's my fault. I should have read the label. What I was happy is a lot of the pasta sauces will have sugar in it, but this one doesn't. So I was really happy to see that this is organics. I think this is at the Fries, or to some of you on the other part of the country, Kroger's. And so I was really elated to read that there's no sugar in here. It's got tomatoes, tomato paste, excuse me, olive oil, garlic, sea salt, onions, vinegar, garlic powder, and organic spices. I'm like, yes. So there are some sauces out there that do not have sugar. All right. And so that is a couple ingredients that I wanted to talk about. Thank you so much for joining us. Um, I hope that you want to take a stand on the case against sugar. Please, we have a new Facebook group. Please invite people because we're going to always be doing webinars and learning new things so we all can get healthy. That's my goal, is to help the community get healthy. And, I'm so excited to be here. And like I said, if anybody needs a provider, I'm in the Phoenix area. I'm only licensed in Arizona. I may get licensed in other states if the need presents. And then if anybody needs any health coaches, I'm here. I'm available. Y'all have a blessed and amazing day.